So we are reading Hands of Light by Barbara Brennan. We are on chapter 3, page number 14 of the book and page number 25 of the PDF.
As my life unfolded, the unseen hand that led me became more and more perceptible. At first, I vaguely sensed it. Then I began seeing spiritual beings as if in a vision. Then I began to hear them talking to me and feel them touch me. I now accept that I have a guide. I can see, hear, and feel him. He says he is not male or female. He says that in his world there is no splitting along sexual lines and that beings at his level of existence are whole. He says that his name is Heon, which means the wind whispering truth through the centuries. His introduction to me was slow and organic. The nature of our relationship grows daily as I am guided to new levels of understanding. You will see it build as we go through this adventure together. At times, I simply call it metaphor.
Okay, so what is she saying, right? In the beginning of the paragraph, he said, at first I vaguely sensed it. Now, this is something that even in the excursion workshop, we tell you that be aware of the vibrations, be aware of the feeling. Many people feel that someone touched their hand. Many people feel that someone walked through the room. I mean, when we were having physical workshops, people used to perceive that someone was walking through the room where we were doing the meditations, right? Now, as your sensory perception starts to synthesize, it starts to expand, you will start perceiving, right? You will start first maybe feeling them or sensing their presence. Then you will be able to start seeing them. The next thing would be you'll start hearing them. Okay. And then you will start hearing them and you will start being able to communicate. This is the process by which it happens. And this is exactly what she says over here. The next concept, as we go into higher states of consciousness, we go into the Nareshwari state where the male and the female are there together, right? So he says over here very clearly that there is no male and female. At those expanded states, everything is, right? There's no distinction also going there. And the idea here is that we have to build our relationship with our guides slowly and steadily. This is something that happens in shamanism also, where when you connect with your helping spirits, right? Once you connect with them, you have to constantly visit them. You have to constantly attune to them. You have to constantly invoke them to build a profound relationship with them. And once you build a relationship, then automatic communication starts to happen. I have found this process to happen even with inanimate objects, like the murtis, for example. जब अपने बोलते हैं प्राण प्रतिष्ठा कर देते हैं मूर्ति में, so when you look at the face of the murti, you will be able to see that the murti is communicating with you. And if you make it a ritual every day, then in the morning, just what I do is when I go to our mandir in the house, and every morning I don't do any ritualistic puja and all. I just jodo my hand and I watch the face of Gopalji, right? His face tells me how my day is going to go or what is happening during the day. Is there blessing? Is there an issue that I need to be careful about? That communication automatically takes place. So the more you build your relationship with these guides, with these entities, the better off it will become for you.
Throughout,
Sorry, which Shivangla, you have to name the things differently. So I don't know which one is the mic and which one is. Okay, now I understand. Go ahead.
throughout this book, I will share with you some of the more obvious examples of guidance and its power. Here I want to show you its simplicity and the way it works.
Shivangla, you're very low volume.
The simplest kind of guidance comes every day and many times a day in the form of discomfort. Heian says that if we just listened to this guidance and followed it, we would rarely get sick. In other words, attending to the discomfort you feel puts you back into balance and therefore health. This discomfort can be in your body in physical form, like physical discomfort or pain. It could be on any level of your being, emotional, mental, or spiritual. It could be in any area of your life.
So again, over here, when you see, right, what he's saying is that anything out of the ordinary, right, any kind of a discomfort, or like you are feeling a breeze, you feel your hair standing up, for example, or you start feeling a pain somewhere. What is it that you need to pay attention? There is something wrong over there. The moment you start paying attention and rectify it, you again come into homeostasis, right? The idea is that the body is very, very intelligent. It wants to get into balance all the time. That's homeostasis that Zia talks about in the somatic intelligence program, where automatic balance is created. Now, whenever there's an imbalance, there'll be a discomfort or a distinct awareness of something that is not normally present. So we need to start paying attention to something that is different. And the more attention we pay, the better off we are at creating that centering effect within us. We as a society have stopped paying attention to the body. This is something that we discussed even in the left hand of God, Agora, the left hand of God, when we read that book online. In that also he says, the universe keeps giving us messages and we have to watch the universe. So what shamans also used to do, I mean, again, Agoras are shamans, they used to watch the messages coming from the universe. What was the message? And then they used to interpret it. In fact, all kinds of divination basically use this method only, that what's different, what is the combination, and then come to a understanding of what is happening.
Heian asks, where is the discomfort in your body, life? How long have you known about it? What is it saying to you? What have you done about it? If you answer those questions honestly, you will find how much you disregard the best tool you have to keep yourself healthy, happy, and wise. Any discomfort anywhere in your body, life is a direct message to you about how you are out of alignment with your true self.
So again, any discomfort is a message that something is amiss. You need to pay attention. You need to do something about it.
Following guidance on this simple level means to rest when you are tired, to eat when you are hungry, and to eat what your body needs when it needs it. It means to take care or change a life circumstance that bothers you. How well have you been able to structure your life so that you can do these things? Not so easy, is it?
So again, we are feeling sleepy, but no, we want to go to a party. I'm feeling hungry, but no, I will not eat something because I want to lose weight. So we are actually forcing our will on our body. But if we can start listening to our body, the body has so much of intelligence and so much of resilience. It is not funny. It's just that we need to start listening and paying attention to what our body is telling us.
Following guidance on this simple level means to rest when you are tired, to eat when you are hungry, and to eat what your body needs when it needs it. It means to take care or change a life circumstance that bothers you. How well have you been able to structure your life so that you can do these things? Not so easy, is it? As you become more attentive to your personal needs by listening, to internal messages that come to you in the form of discomfort, you will become more balanced and clear. This will bring more health to you. The practice of listening in will also bring on the phenomena of direct or verbal guidance.
So now this is important. When we start listening, only then we can start hearing, right? So it is very important. The first step is to connect with your physical body. This is something that again we got to know in the magical child, the matrix system, right? So if I'm not in connection with my physical body, like the child has to first feel things physically, right? Then only you can go into the abstract and into the expanded states of mind, which is the sixth or the seventh matrix in the magical child, right? So over here also in spirituality, we have to move through the fields. And the first step is starting to listen to our body. That will open our awareness to the other kinds of messages that can come through the universe or through entities or through our guides and masters.
You may start receiving very simple verbal directives. A voice that you hear in yourself, but that you recognize as coming from beyond yourself. There are two important points about learning to follow guidance. The first is that you will need to practice receiving guidance for yourself before you are qualified to receive it for others.
Okay, now this is important over here, this thing. If you are not familiar with receiving guidance and you have not built up a relationship with your guides and you do not trust the guidance, it becomes difficult to give guidance for others, right? So it is very important that we work on ourselves and work on the guidance. When we are getting the guidance, we must act on the guidance. This is something that we keep repeating in the excursion workshop and all the other workshops, that if there is a download, if you are getting a guidance, when you're asking, for example, when we use the one breath technique and you get a guidance, the more you act on it, the stronger your trust will become. Okay. And the stronger your intuition will become. So we have to keep acting on it before we can give guidance to others. We also have to develop our own process of receiving the guidance. For example, I'm taking Shrimangla, whenever she asks a question and the answer is right, she gets a pressure in the forehead over here. Now that's a right. Now, when I am asking a question, I get a feel that ye hoga ki nahi hoga. And over the years, I've even developed a method of counting where I can get the probability of something happening or not. And it's pretty accurate. The way that things pan out, you can actually feel as to what is the right way to go or the right way to do it. When you look at theoretical physicists, they used to do the same thing. They used to do the experiment in their head, right? So they're doing the experiment and they'll come to a point and then there's such, if we do this, will it work? No. If we do this, will it work? No. If we do this, will it work? And the experiment is going on inside their head. So everyone who's an innovator constantly uses this process. Okay. That guidance, that inner connection, that is so important for us when we really want to go into expanded states of consciousness. You're on the fifth line, Shivendra.
The second is that the information or directives that you get may be very simple and seem totally unimportant at first. In fact, it may seem like a complete waste of time to follow any of it. I have come to realize that there is a reason for this. Later, when channeling important information about another person's life or specific information about illness, a professional channeler will get information that doesn't make any sense or seems irrelevant or just plain wrong.
So again, over here, what is she saying, right? That in the beginning, you may get irrelevant stuff. but the more you pay attention, the more you act on it, your trust will start to increase. Now we have to understand that since, it's like when we are looking at something, we are looking at it from here, but when we are getting guidance, we are looking at it from a much higher perspective. So we do not know everything. It's like when in the excursion, we talk about the small guy and the big guy, right? The small guy knows very little compared to the big guy. This is again something that we talked about in Zero Limits, where he said very clearly that if we are consciously able to process 40 bits of data, the subconscious mind or the superconscious mind is processing 40 million bits of data, right? So the guidance is coming down, and with our small consciousness, we may not understand what the guidance is, but it is our duty to actually give the guidance to the person concerned, because if something doesn't make sense to us, it doesn't mean that it will not make sense to the other guy, because the other guy naturally knows more about himself than you tend to know about the person. So that's why it becomes very important to start paying attention when we are going into this guidance work.
It may be, but most of the time, this is the rational mind at work. The information coming through a clear channel is often beyond what the rational mind of the channeler can understand. It is at those times when the channeler will need a lot of past experience to remember all the other times the information didn't make sense when it came through. Yet later, the information turned out to be very helpful and understandable when all the information was in. I find now that during the hours spent healing and channeling, I will receive information in a non-linear way that slowly over the hour creates an understandable picture that gives more information than was possible in just a rational or linear mode.
So again, there's a download taking place, right? So it's very much like a jigsaw puzzle. Everything is coming at the same time, but the jigsaw puzzle, once you place it in the right position, then the mosaic starts to show you what the picture is. So we have to trust the process. That is the most important thing in all kinds of intuitive connections and channeling, as she is saying it.
If you look, you will begin to recognize guidance throughout the greater patterns of your life. Why has one event followed another? What have you used from each? It is no accident that I was first trained as a physicist, then a counselor, and then became a healer. All this training has prepared me for my life's work.
So again, over here, we have to understand, right? When in the Lifeline program, for example, or in X27, which I hope will come soon to India, that you're going into the focus level of 27, and over there is a planning center. So if you want to do something, or if you look at it from the Vedantic principles, the prarabdha vasana, which is paka hua, which needs to manifest, you will put an arzi over there that this is what I want to experience. Now in the planning center, they will create the scenarios over here. They will make out the connections with what kind of people you're going to meet, what are the incidents that are going to happen in your life, which will result in your experiencing what you wanted to experience, right? So what she's saying over here, actually speaking, there is a lot of planning going on beneath the chaos. So when we look at it from a normal perspective, we may think that there is chaos in our life. I don't know why this happened. I don't know why I met this person. I don't know why I saw this movie. I don't know why this happened. I don't know why this happened, right? But if we allow the flow to come into our life, we will see that everything has a meaning. Nothing happens in our life meaninglessly. The more we come into acceptance and gratitude and jack into the flow, the more clear and clarity will come into our life that, okay, this is leading to this. And the more into into the process of experiencing the life that we wanted to experience or we planned to experience when we were in those higher states of consciousness will start to manifest in our life. Okay, there's a saying by Eckhart Tolle, only the author of Power of Now, that whatever you resist persists, right? So if you are resisting something, it will keep repeating in your life. So what she says over here very clearly, throughout the greater patterns of your life. So whenever there is a pattern, we need to pay attention. So this is again something that we keep focusing everyone's attention on. Observe the patterns. If there is a pattern occurring in your life, that means you need to pay attention and transcend the pattern. Otherwise, you'll be stuck. That thing will keep repeating in your life unnecessarily, and it's a total waste of energy when a pattern keeps repeating, because then you're not experiencing something new. You're stuck in that pattern. It's like a broken down record player.
The training in physics gave me a background structure with which to examine the aura. The counseling training gave me the background to understand the psychodynamics related to energy flow in the auric field, and also gave me an opportunity to observe the auric fields of many people. I would not have been able to bring this material together without those trainings.
Okay, so now again, if you see, I'm giving you my own example. So first I went into physical Vastu, right? I found that it doesn't work. And then I suddenly, Prabhaji Podar popped into my life and he was using the Lecker antenna. And he was able to explain a lot of things that the normal physical Vastu people were not being able to explain. Then when we started doing rectification in people's houses, we started seeing the result, but we couldn't explain the result to people or what is going to happen. Suddenly what happened, the Progen Aura camera popped into my life through someone else. And I found that this is a means of my being able to explain to people what is happening in their house, because I've got a document. Okay, there's a thing which is physical. I'm not just speaking about it, right? Then slow and steady, I wanted, now I've got a picture, something is happening. I started finding that people are going back into the same pattern after we've repaired it. So I started looking around and I couldn't find anything. And then suddenly this Journeys Out of the Body, the book fell out of the shelf, right? And I got to know about the Monroe Institute. Once I got to know about that, I started finding that, okay, we are going into these altered states, but now what? What do we do about it? And that's the time when life system popped into my life, mind mirror popped into my life, heart math popped into my life, which gave me instruments to be able to start measuring stuff, right? And then I started feeling that, okay, now this we've done, we are healing the space, but what about the person? And one day I was just, I don't know from where it popped up, the book, Human Biofield Tuning by Eileen, it just suddenly popped onto my screen. I don't know from where it came. As soon as I saw the book, I clicked on it and I saw, okay, this is good stuff, and I bought the book. And when I started searching, immediately I was going to America and a program was going to take place at that time. So I managed to attend the program. So everything has a structure. Now, if we look at our lives, we will find that everything has a structure. It is leading us somewhere, provided we allow ourselves to be led. We start saying yes to life rather than all the time saying no and resisting things. The more we say yes, the more in the flow we tend to become. Okay, now again, this is operating at a higher state of consciousness.
I certainly wasn't aware of training to be a healer when I was at NASA. I had never heard of such a thing, nor was I interested in illness. What I was interested in was the way the world worked. What made it tick? I looked everywhere for answers. This thirst for understanding has been one of the most powerful agents guiding me throughout my life. What is your thirst? What is your longing?
Okay, so now we again come back to the book that we read, Ikigai, right? We have to find our Ikigai. The more we connect with what were the 4 tenets of Ikigai? You are good at what you do. the world needs it, you can be paid for it, and you're passionate about, you're good at doing it. Okay, so these are the 4 tenets. So now what does she say? What is your thirst? What is your longing? So what she's attempting to say is that find your Ikigai, and that's what will take you into the flow. Most of the time we have square pegs in round holes. It's like that movie, The Three Idiots, right? The two of the friends, one guy wanted to be a photographer, the other guy wanted to do something else, but they were following their parents' wishes to become engineers, right? The moment they shifted into their passion, automatically they started doing well because they had found their Ikigai. So what is your thirst? What is your passion? That becomes very important over here.
Whatever it is, it will carry you to what you need to do next to accomplish your work, even if you don't know what that work is yet. When a thing is easily presented to you and it sounds wonderful to do and a great deal of fun, by all means do it. That is guidance. Let yourself flow free with the dance of your life. If you don't, you block guidance and your progress.
So now again over here we come with the 4 S's, right? What were the 4 S's? Again, the 4 tenets: Swata, Sahaj, Shresht, and Swikar, right? Now, what is he saying over here? When a thing is easily presented to you and it sounds wonderful to do and is a great deal of fun, by all means do it. So it's come by itself, Swata. It is easy for you to do. It's the best for all concerned, and you accept it, right? Immediately things start to flow. So this is another 4 tenets which you can use to get into the flow.
There are times when my guidance is more obvious than other times. One particular time was so beautiful and profound that it has carried me through many a rough time since. At that point, I was a counselor in Washington, D.C. During the sessions I was giving people, I began to see what might be termed past lives. I would see the individual I was working with in a completely different setting, in a different time frame. Whatever the scene was, it was relevant in some way to what was going on in the person's life. For example, a woman who was afraid of the water had drowned in another lifetime. She also had difficulty in asking for help in this lifetime. In the lifetime when she was drowned, nobody could hear her screams for help when she fell off a boat. This personality difficulty interfered with her life now more than the fear of the water.
Okay, so now what is happening? We are going into an altered state. We talked about this in the process, in the biogeometry process, they talk about stacking, right? So there is a past, there is a present, and there is a future. Normally, with our small consciousness, with our normal state of consciousness, we are moving toward from the past. We are moving. I mean, the past is behind us. We are in the present right now, and we are moving towards the future. But in that process, they called it stacking. Now, this is something that we saw in the movie Interstellar also, right? There is a scene in Interstellar, which is the crux of the movie, where there is a shaft inside and the hero is in that shaft. And there are many windows and everything is happening at the same time. Okay, so this is what stacking is all about. Now, when there is stacking, we can move from one level to the other level directly. This is also something which was seen in the Miranon colors. In the we talk about it in the excursion also. Sometimes we talk about it, but it's spoken more about it in the gateway, where there are channels, right? We can actually go the levels of consciousness. This is again something we are going to be talking about in power versus force, the levels of consciousness. But we can shift from one state. So first you have the mineral frequency, then you have the animal frequency, then you have the human frequency, And then that's in a circle, and it always moves in the levels of 7, and then it goes into the next level, right? So what is she talking about here is that when you're going into these expanded states, you're able to perceive through the stack. So you can actually connect that, okay, if someone is having a problem here, where's the resonance coming from? Now we spoke about this, I don't know, in Power versus Force or in this book, but if something is happening here to you and it's coming because it's resonating with something here, so then if I do something here, it will rectify this also. This is something that again we are observing in biofield tuning also. When we are when we are doing the timeline in the biofield, if there is a problem over here, and I keep using this example, if you had a fight with a friend, right, it's going to affect all your friendships. So now let us say you had that problem when you were 4 years old. Now you're 54 years old, right? Now over here, if you do a rectification, we'll find that the 4-year mein jo problem tha, that will also tend to dissolve. Okay, so it works in harmonic. So when we are going into these expanded states, we can actually start perceiving past lives. I'll give you my own example. It actually started happening to me when I started going into those states, and this is pre-Monroe. I was in a different state of mind totally over there. If you see my aura photos that time, you can see the 7 rings, etc. Now, at that time, if I looked at a person, I could say, okay, this person was my father, this person was my wife, this person was my brother, this person was my sister, he was my employee, this guy actually stabbed me in the back. Things like that started happening. And it became very difficult for me because you are relating to that person in that way, but that person is not relating to you in that way, in the same way, right? So I actually switched it off. Now, when I want to, I switch it on. Otherwise, I've created a switch, which I switch off. So the same thing started happening to her, where she was going into these altered states, and she could actually perceive where the effect or where the problem that the client was facing here, where the resonance was, where was it actually coming from? And the scene started to play in front of her. It actually starts happening like that.
However, I didn't know how to handle all this information properly. I began praying for guidance. I needed to find a reliable person or group of people who could handle this information in a professional way.
So again, asking for help. Yesterday, I don't know how many of you all attended, but Carolyn was going in for an operation, and she has done the excursion 4 times during the pandemic, right? Online, I think we started in August. So between August and now it's September, in a year's time, she's done 4 excursions, and every time she seems to have a better experience, right? And she said the one of the most important things that I've got from the programs is the process of asking for help. Now, most of us, because of our ego, we don't reach out. But that is one of the tenets of the gateway affirmation, asking for help. Now, she didn't understand something, so she started asking for help. She started asking for guidance. She started asking for support from people who knew better than her as to how to handle that information.
The answer came one evening when I was camping on the beach at Assateague Island, Maryland. It was a rainy night, so I had a translucent plastic tarp over my head and sleeping bag. In the middle of the night, I heard someone calling my name and woke up. The voice was very clear. No one is there, I thought, as I gazed at the overcast sky. Then suddenly I realized that I was looking at the plastic tarp over my head. With a great sweep of my arm, I pushed it off and fell back in utter awe at the outstretched stars twinkling above me. I heard celestial music singing across the heavens from star to star. I took that experience as an answer to my prayers. Shortly after, I found the Phoenicia Patchwork Pathwork Center where I moved and got the training I needed to interpret past life and other supersensory material over the next 9 years of my life.
So again, she had literally had an out of body experience, right? She was outside her body and she was watching the stars. And once that happened, certain things opened up for her. Now we also do the Obe program. Some of you have attended that. And in that, William Bullman clearly tells us, right, that the journey, we may think an out of body experiences, we are going out of the body, but he says that it's more an in-body experience. We are connecting to our center. We are connecting to a deeper part of ourselves, which when we are centered, when we get the centering effect in us, we start connecting to the centering effect in everything around us. This is also how, highly spiritual people, because they are so centered, the moment you come into their presence, you also start becoming centered. This is something that Zia keeps talking about, the centering effect, and also in biogeometry. We have this process where everything has a center. You can create that center, and as soon as you connect the periphery to the center, everything starts to radiate that spiritual energy. Okay, it's really profound. When we really start doing it, it really shifts the energy in a environment. Bianca, your hand was up. Anything? Bianca, your hand was up. Okay.
When it was time for me to have a counseling practice in New York City, I knew it because the internal pull to do so was so strong. Office space was readily available, and I wanted a change in my life, so I consulted my guidance through writing. I received a clear yes, and I went ahead. I was guided slowly to turn that counseling practice into one of healing. It happened automatically, as stated before, when people started coming to me and asking for healing. Then I received direct verbal guidance to stop that practice and focus on teaching and on writing this book to reach a larger audience. Following these changes is not so easy. Each new change challenges me. It seems that each time I have a secure life established, it is time to change and therefore to grow. What is next? I really do not know, but I do know that I will be guided each step of the way.
So if you really see, what she's saying at the end of the paragraph is, I do know that I will be guided each step of the way. So what she's explaining in this entire paragraph is that she is very deeply connected to the flow, and she says yes to what is manifesting in her life, and one thing leads to the other. And as soon as, this is very important what she said, as soon as you think everything is settled, it is the time for the next jump. So I have seen one thing, whenever there is growth in the spiritual path, or I think in anything, you have a growth path and then you'll come to a plateau. The plateau is a very important stage in your life, because that is where you integrate what you have learned in the growth time, right? Now, if you don't integrate it properly, then you're going to go down. But if you integrate it properly, now you've learned that lesson, you are ready to learn the next lesson, and then the next growth will automatically start. So the plateau state is where most people, when they are in the spiritual path or in any other kind of practice, you may notice that they lose it. So the more you push it, that last straw, that last bit of effort is always what is very much required, because you can make and break yourself with that last push, that last bit. Okay, so over here, what is happening? She says it happened automatically. She didn't, again, when she says it happened automatically, it is happening swata, the first tenant, right? Now, because it is happening and she's saying, yes, she's accepted it. That's the fourth tenant. And naturally, she is good at it, right? And it is for the highest good. Now she left a counseling practice to become a healer, and then left that healing practice to write the book and to start teaching. So which is the higher goal? Counseling, you're making money, right? Healing, you're actually making an effort on the other person. Teaching, you're making people understand. Writing a book and actually creating a program is one step higher, because you can actually give it to a lot more people. So again, she's absolutely growing. When you see this path, she's actually growing in her life.
There is within every human personality a child. Everyone can remember how it was to be a child, to feel the inner freedom of a child and to experience life in a simple way. This inner child is very wise. Am I on the correct page?
Yes.
It feels connected to all life. It knows love without question. This inner child gets covered as we become adults and try to live by our rational minds only. This limits us. It is this inner child that must be uncovered to begin to follow guidance.
Okay, so this is very, very important, right? Most of us become extremely serious. Now, if you see a child, I was just doing a biofield tuning session for this young girl, and she is saying, I don't know what to do. Nothing interests me. I'm not happy. I'm not connected with anything. I don't know what is happening. Right. Now, what is that? She is totally disconnected from the inner child. Now, if you look at a child, if you look at a small child, the child will find joy in everything. You give this thing to him and he'll say, yeah, what is this? Lick it, feel it, throw it, feel it, make a game out of it, right? And be totally happy. Now you take this away, it may get a little upset for some time, but it'll pick up something else, right? So the inner child within us is constantly hooked to joy, and it just follows the guidance. It just does what comes up in their life. They are totally in the present moment. They're not in the past or the future. This is again something that we read in Power of Now, where everything is happening in the present. But most of the time we are spending ourselves, if you start observing yourself, you'll find you're either in the past or in the future. You're not in the present. Now, if your present is good, your past is good, and your future is based on your past. So your future is also good. But where do we spend most of our time? In the past or the future. Now, if you look at it from the aspect of the grade, you'll find that whenever you are in the past or in the future, you are always on the left side of the grid. Because what do we think about most of the time? Things that will go wrong, right? So we automatically put ourselves on the left side of the grid. But when you look at a child, the child is always acting happy. The child is most of the time, it may get upset for some time, but suddenly it will become okay. You put something, you distract the child, boom, the child is away. And we have all lost it, right? So she says over here very clearly, the inner child gets covered as we become adults and we try to live by a rational mind. What is a rational mind? The small guy. The child lives with the full guy, right? But most of the time we are living with only the small guy, and the small guy literally knows nothing. So the moment we uncover and we start connecting to the big guy, which is the inner child, automatically life seems to start to flow.
Sorry, Bhaiya, I just want to ask you one question.
Yeah.
The way we are and the connection that we have with our inner child is also because of the way we were brought up, right?
Absolutely.
The kind of upbringing that we got. So if we got that kind of upbringing where it wasn't the typical, very authoritative parenting where you were allowed to interact, you were allowed to throw out your thoughts and everything, you grew up still connecting to your inner child. So I think that the way we've all grown up has a big impact on how we deal with things around us right now in our present.
101%.
Okay.
That is why I always tell parents, encourage your children to try new things. Let them take that step, extra step. गिरेगा नहीं तो सीखेगा कैसे?
Like the
But
parenting I got and the
yeah,
parenting now I feel for my daughter, I feel
yeah,
it's so different. Like we were always said to see the brightness around everything, to be positive about everything. we wouldn't jump to conclusion about anything being negative. Like you study for a test, you say, yeah, I know I've studied, I'll do well. But now I feel most of the generation now, they say, even if I study, I don't think I'm going to make it. It's like, it's so dark, and they just have a very
Exactly. So we are to be blamed, right? As parents.
so we have to keep changing their mindset.
Absolutely. You have to change your mindset first before you'll be able to change your child's mindset. First, you have to be open to trying new things, right? Then only you can tell your child to do it. If you are not ready to do it, how can you tell your child to do it?
So basically be a good role model.
I'll tell you one thing, right? There was this small video which was there. This guy was walking and the son was walking behind him exactly like him. So let me tell you, the children are very observant and they will copy you because you are their hero. Are you understanding what I'm saying? So they will copy you. So you have to be very careful when you are around children, and especially children who are hooked to you. So how are you bringing up your child? What is your state of consciousness? Where are you operating from? That will boil down and rub down to your child. You cannot stop it. It's impossible.
Within the house, it's different. But once you're out there dealing with all the peer pressure and everything, that's a totally different ballgame again.
No. It's the same ballgame, let me tell you. It's a mindset. It's a mindset. Because, see, when you're in fear, again, you've never done the grade, but when you're in fear, you're on the left side of the grid. And no manifestation will take place on the left side of the grid. When we come into these scales of consciousness, you will notice it. And we'll go through the grid also when we in power versus force. You will understand what I'm talking about. So where are you operating from? Whether it's your own life or your children's life or your husband's life or your company's life, anything, where are you operating from? That's the key thing. Okay. Yeah. Yes, Chachi.
Niket, two girls, Analisa and Farida, are saying that they've been locked out and they can't get in. The meeting is locked.
Why is the meeting locked?
I don't know.
Oh, someone locked the meeting.
Yeah,
someone locked the meeting. Sorry.
So Farida and Analisa.
Yeah. Thank you, Chachi.
Yeah.
Shimangla, don't lock the meeting, please.
I didn't lock it.
Then who locked the meeting? Anyway. Yes, Renuji, you were saying something?
Bhaiya, just now she was talking about that we were brought up positive, but our children are not. But I mean, if we are already positive, then our children should be positive. No, then we are doing something. What are we doing wrong? I mean, what I'm trying to say, you got what I mean.
I have got what you mean. She said that we were brought up positive.
Yeah.
Right? But she didn't say that we are positive. Now today, where's Bianca operating from? What was the statement she made? That, in the house, it's all right. But the moment we go outside, then fear creeps in. So who's fearful? Is the child fearful or is she fearful? Bianca, can you show us yourself again?
Yes.
Nahi samajh mein aaya.
Bhaiya, that's why I'm saying if somebody is like, just now we said, no, how our parents have brought us up, we tend to do. So she said they were brought up positively, but our children are not being brought positively. Why?
Because her parents brought her up from the right side of the grid, but she's bringing up her child from the left side of the grid.
It's not only me, it's like...
It's everyone around you. Because you said it, Bianca, I'm taking your example.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's the fact, no?
But Bhaiya, she should be positive. She should be positive.
should ko mariye goli. Aap samajh gaye kya? See where we are operating from. Today, most of the parents, I'll tell you something. Please understand this, right? Most of the parents today are so protective about their children, it is not funny. Now,
but Bhaiya, that's because the society has become like that.
No. I totally disagree. You have to allow the child to experience life, right? Because ultimately, at some point in time, the child is going to go out of your chhatra chaya.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when the child goes out of your Chhatra Chhaya, he has to face that world. She has to face that world. So now you've not trained the child to face the world. नहीं समझ में आया? By being
Okay.
overprotective, we are actually doing a disservice to our children, not a
No,
service.
but if we were not overprotected, what I'm more thinking on the lines that when we were not overprotected, no mother will
How
become
many siblings were
overprotected.
you? How many siblings were you?
We were 3.
You were 3 siblings. You lived in a joint family. Your cows and all also lived together.
No, there was nobody else. It was
Nobody else. So at least you were 3, na? आजकल एक ही होता है.
That is the problem. That is the problem, bhaiya.
So
You're right.
full attention is on that one, right? इसको तो protect करके रखना है. इसको कुछ हो जाएगा तो मेरा क्या होगा?
It is that one child.
पहले क्या होता था? I know my father tells me that in the house between their cousins and this and that there were 14 children.
Oh.
Right? Now what used to happen was the milk used to be put and the bell used to ring. You come and drink your milk. If you don't get it, matter is over. Right? Now what happens?
You're
Arey
running
pee
after
lo, arey kha lo, what will you have?
Okay.
बटर लगा के खिलाता है. पहले नहीं खाता तो एक झापड़ लगता था. झापड़ खाता था तो अपने आप खा लेता था. आजकल लल्लू बटर लगता है तो खाता भी नहीं.
So, bhaiya, that means you believe in the spare the rod and spoil the child.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to have the rod, right? Now, today, if you look at schools, for example, the teacher can't tell the child anything.
That's true. That's true.
So how are you going to discipline the child? Matter's over.
Yeah. Niket,
Yes.
I nowadays, as you say, that the teacher can't say anything to the child. And even like you will read, the doctors will say, psychological problem ho jata hai, bacche ko ye mat bolo, bacche ko wo mat bolo. But, like, as you say, like, I remember, okay, we were 4 siblings and nobody was bothered. Koi bua aa gayi dur se, koi chachi aa gayi, koi kuch bhi bol ke chali jaati thi. I mean,
Yeah.
we never used to mind it also so much.
Yeah.
We never used to take it on our heart कि मेरे को गोरी बोल गई कि काली बोल गई कि कुछ ऐसे बोल
Yeah.
गई. But nowadays, like you have to think every word what you want to tell the child.
Correct.
Because their parents
Absolutely.
get very upset.
Absolutely. So this is the problem. Now we've created the problem.
Yeah.
Chaliye.
Niket, if I can say something.
Yes, Didi.
आजकल तो अलग अलग बच्चों के लिए अलग अलग खाना भी बनता है. हम लोग when we were kids, we ate everything that was made.
Yeah.
Correct.
So that's
So who's
another
at
very
fault?
big change. which is happening.
Who's at fault?
Yeah.
You are at fault.
Whoever is
Don't
having
make it.
whoever
Who's
is
telling you to
having
make it? भाई ये खाना बना है सबको को यही खाना पड़ेगा.
Exactly.
So then who's at fault? You tell me.
And Kavita, we ate the same tiffin for years.
Exactly.
Every
Right.
day.
No, so Mukul, at my place, it was not me, it was the other elders. The dadi would say, no, nahi khana chahiye and all, because I have learned to eat karela, parval, everything, because wahi banta tha, wahi khana padta tha.
Absolutely.
Chaliye.
We'll finish this. Okay, so we are going to overshoot a little bit, but we'll finish this.
You must return to the loving, trusting wisdom of your inner child to develop the ability to receive and follow guidance. We all long for freedom. It is through the child that it will be gained. After allowing this inner child of yours more freedom, you can then begin a dialogue between the adult and the child parts of your personality. The dialogue will integrate the free and loving part of your personality with the sophisticated adult.
So if you see, when we want to connect into these higher states of consciousness, one of the things that we need to connect with is simplicity. If you see a child, the child is very simple. It's not bothered what it's wearing, where is it, how is it relating. Bane wo rasta mein bhi lady aayega, usko koi farak nahi padta hai, right? So simplicity. Now, if you look at any person who's highly spiritual, you will find that person automatically also becomes very simple. Now, simplicity, when you look at it from the Vedantic concept, they get non-attached. They detach from everything. They're using everything, but they are not attached, which leads to that simplicity. Okay. And that's what leads to that inner child. So most highly spiritual people will automatically become very childlike.
Scattered throughout this book, you will hear the child and the healer, counselor, physicist speaking. It will help loosen your fixed reality and broaden your experience. This dialogue is a doorway into wonder. Find it in yourself and nurture it.
So when you see a child, the child is always in awe, is always in wonderment. Arey, ye kya mil gaya? What is this? So that is that wonderment we need to bring back into our lives. We've actually lost that feeling of wonderment. Wow, this is also something that can happen, which we've totally lost. We need to bring it back into our lives.
We are all guided by spiritual teachers who speak to us in our dreams, through our intuition, and eventually, if we listen, they speak to us directly. Perhaps through writing at first, then through sound, voice, or concepts. These teachers are full of love and respect for us. At some point along the way, you too may be able to see them or directly communicate with them, as I do.
So again, this is very important, right? These teachers are full of love and respect for us. They are here to guide us. They are here to nudge us to go into the right place, but they will never force us to do something. In the Monroe process, we constantly say that the entities in these higher states of consciousness are full of love and compassion. They are extremely compassionate. So if you don't want to do something, they're not going to force you to do it. So when we come here, we have something called free will. The more we align our free will to the divine will as in, I would say that what we had planned to experience over here, the more in conjunction, the more in resonance you are with that, the easier life will become. You will experience the experience and move forward, right? But because we use our free will and we want, the ego takes over, that is where all the problems start to occur. And that's when, then naturally, if you're operating from the ego, the communication with these higher states of consciousness beings does not take place. You have to let go of the ego for that download and that communication to take place, because when you are getting those downloads, it leads to non-duality. And the ego is all about duality. It's about the self. Mera, 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 right? But when you're looking at compassion, these higher states of consciousness, it's all about the whole. It's about everyone else. It's not about you. So you will look after the needs of others before your own needs. That shift in state becomes very important. Again, we'll see this in power versus force as we see the levels of consciousness going up.
This will change your life, for you will find that you are fully and completely loved as you are right now in this moment. You are deserving and worthy of this love. You deserve health, happiness, and fulfillment in your life. You can create it. You can learn step by step the process to change your life and make it full. There are many paths to this fullness. Ask for guidance as to where you need to go or which path you need to follow now, and you will be guided.
So those who ask will receive. So we have to ask for guidance. We must be open to guidance, right? And then we have to operate. We have to work on that guidance. If I get a guidance and I don't act on it, then the person giving me guidance will say, okay, you don't want to act, you want to do what you want to do. Go ahead and do it. We are there to support you in what you want to do. But now that may not be in alignment with your actual goal, your actual reason why you're here. So the higher states of consciousness that you go into, the more aligned you become with your natural process. What is it that you are actually here to do and be?
Whether you have a life-threatening illness, a marital difficulty, a problem of the will, depression, or whether you are struggling with difficult situations in your chosen area of work, you can start changing now, right in this moment. You can realign yourself with your deepest longing and the greatest good you have to offer yourself and others. Simply ask for help. Your requests will be answered.
So simply ask for help. Your request will be answered. And again over here he says, oh, yeah. So with a difficult situation in your chosen area of work, you can start changing now. This is something that we did when we did the 7 chakra workshop with Astha. She talked about how you can use the pendulum to actually ascertain what is the any difficulty you're facing, right? You can actually ascertain where the block is, that is which chakra the block is in. And then when you bring in the essence of the higher chakra into the problem of the lower chakra, where the problem or where you are stuck, it automatically resolves the issue and you start moving again. So the idea is constantly to move. The idea is to constantly grow, right? Now, today you're doing something. You have to ask yourself the question, is it making me grow or is it pulling me down? This is a question that you need to ask yourself, right? It's also the same thing, that is something taking you to the left side of the grid or is it taking you to the right side of the grid? In my view, anything that puts us on the left side of the grid, we need to drop it. That's the game that we need to play with ourselves. Okay, let's just go through this.
Number 1, what kind of technical training does a healer need and why? 2, what is the simplest form of guidance in your life?
Okay, so this is a question all of you can answer for yourselves.
Food for thought. 3, what are some of the more profound experiences of guidance in your life and what effect did they have on your life?
Now, this is important. All of us receive guidance. Okay. But most of the time, we are not aware that we've got the guidance. So we need to start paying attention when guidance is coming into our life.
4, how well are you able to follow your guidance? 5, do you consciously listen for or ask for guidance for yourself? How often?
So again, how often are you connecting to these higher states? How often are you actually allowing the guidance to come into your life? This is what we need to make ourselves aware about. I think this was really profound, this chapter. Anyone, anything? I'm stopping the recording.